All right, so get this. Today, we're going deep on the story behind Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit, and I know what you're thinking. Another tech giant origin story, but trust me, this one's different.
It really is fascinating how a platform known for, well, almost everything starts with this surprisingly personal story.
Yeah, that's what we're here to unpack, right? This whole
Yeah.
thing about Reddit being this massive anonymous universe where, like, anything goes, but it all starts with this very specific, very human moment.
Exactly. And this isn't some tale spun in a boardroom. This is two college students, Steve Huffman and Alexis Ohanian, and a wild idea.
Okay, so set the scene for us here. We're talking pre-Facebook, pre-iPhone even, right? What were these guys pitching back then?
Picture this, you're hungry, you whip out your flip phone and order fast food.
Wait, seriously, fast food delivery in like 2005. That's before its time, almost.
Almost, but not quite the tech revolution we know today, right?
Not even close. I mean, honestly, I have enough trouble ordering a pizza on my phone now. Can't imagine it going over so well back then. Well, luckily for them, they were pitching to Paul Graham, the venture capitalist behind Y Combinator.
Ah, okay, so they had some kind of in.
And Graham saw something in them, even if the idea itself was a flop. He even nicknamed them the Reddits.
The Reddits. Come on, there's got to be a story there.
Oh, there absolutely is.
Yeah.
So Graham's wife, Jessica Livingston, she had this thing about calling people muffins, term of endearment.
Okay.
And since Huffman and Ohanian were all about this soul food idea, well, soul food muffins just kind of stuck.
That is amazing. I'm kind of sad they didn't go with that.
Right. Talk about a memorable name. But anyway, Graham, even though he loved their energy, he told them flat out, we like you, just not your idea.
So he gave them the old heave-ho.
Not at all.
Yeah.
This is where Graham's like a mentor here. He saw potential they just hadn't struck gold yet.
Yeah.
And to get this, he actually had a suggestion.
All right, now we're getting to the good stuff.
So there was this website, delicious. Maybe you remember people shared links, bookmark stuff.
Vaguely rings a bell.
It had this popular page constantly updating with the most shared content. Graham thought, what if we took that idea and blew it up?
So he basically handed them the keys to the kingdom, said, go forth and create Reddit.
Not exactly. More like a nudge in the right direction.
Huh.
And the best part? Huffman and Ohanian were already on the train home when it hit them.
No way they hopped right back off.
Next stop got on a northbound train. And that's when Reddit, as we know it, started to take shape.
Yeah.
Of course, they had other names they were tossing around. They almost went with Snoo.
Snoo. Like, what's snoo? Not bad, actually.
Catchy, right. But the domain name was way too expensive. So Snoo became the mascot, and they went with the name they were using as a placeholder, Reddit.
And the rest is history.
You could say that again. But what's wild is how much of Reddit's success comes back to that train ride, a single suggestion, sparking this whole phenomenon.
So this whole let the users decide thing, it's kind of brilliant, but also kind of risky, right? I mean, even with the best intentions, things can go sideways fast when you've got a free-for-all online.
Oh, absolutely. Reddit's had its share of, let's just say, growing pains over the years. But that's part of what makes it so fascinating. It's this constantly evolving experiment in online community. And a lot of it, goes back to those early days and Steve Huffman's own personality.
Okay, so we talked about the train ride, the light bulb moment. But what was it about Huffman himself that made Reddit what it is?
Well, for one thing, he was this hardcore Lisp programmer.
Lisp. I
Wasn't
gotta
it?
be honest, that doesn't mean much to me.
Don't worry, most people wouldn't know Lisp from Python.
Hmm.
But in the programming world, Lisp was like this hidden gem. Super elegant, powerful, but also kind of niche, attracted a certain kind of coder. The ones who weren't afraid to dig into the really weird stuff, not just building apps, but like exploring the very nature of computation.
So kind of like Reddit itself then. A haven for the super nerds, even if it gets a little out there sometimes.
Exactly. And this wasn't just some abstract thing. It really shaped how Huffman approached building Reddit. He had this famous quote comparing it to Slashdot, another big site back in the day. Slashdot relied on like human editors to curate the front page.
Ah, okay. So more of a top-down approach.
Exactly. And Huffman saw that as a bottleneck. He was like, no way, we're not limiting the flow of information. Reddit had to be different. It had to be about the users.
So it was basically the Wild West of online forums back then.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's where Huffman's own distrust of authority really comes into play. He truly believed the users should decide what's interesting. Not some boardroom of editors. This wasn't about imposing a vision. It was about creating a space where anything could bubble up.
It's kind of wild to think this massive platform that's like a cornerstone of the internet now, it all came from this love for a niche programming language and a deep-seated distrust of authority. But did that hands-off approach ever backfire? So it sounds like a recipe for disaster, right? I mean, giving
Yeah.
that much power to the users, you're bound to run into some trouble.
Oh, absolutely. Reddit's history is, let's just say, not without its bumps in the road. Remember that period we touched on earlier when Huffman stepped back from the company?
Yeah, the whole benign neglect thing, it always seemed kind of strange to me. You build something like this, pour your heart into it, and then you just walk away.
It's one of those things that's hard to fully unpack. Maybe a mix of burnout, wanting to try new things, maybe even a little bit of not realizing how important his style, his touch was to how Reddit worked.
So what happened? Did things start to fall apart?
You could say that. Some decisions were made, not all of them great. Some internal struggles, and yeah, a few PR nightmares that could have sunk a less resilient platform. Graham, in his writing, he calls some of these spectacular blunders, which is pretty understated for him.
Spectacular blunders, huh? Okay, now I really want to know the details on those.
We need a whole other deep dive for that, believe me. But
Yeah.
the point is, even with all that going on, the heart of Reddit, those core users, they stuck around.
Wow, really? Even when things were getting messy?
They did. And that tells you something important about what Huffman and Ohanian had stumbled on. Almost accidentally, they'd hit on something fundamental. Graham uses this term, lower bound, to describe it.
Lower bound. Okay, gotta ask, what in the world does that mean?
Think of it like this. Even with minimal guidance, even with some stumbles from the people in charge, Reddit was still giving its users something they couldn't get anywhere else. That connection, the new ideas, the entertainment, the outrage, the surprises, it was, and still is, like holding up a mirror to the best and, let's be honest, sometimes the worst of the internet.
So what you're saying is they'd tapped into something so deep, so essential, that it could thrive even when they weren't actively trying to make it thrive.
Exactly. It had a life of its own, which is why Huffman coming back is so fascinating. It's like taking this already powerful thing, this lower bound of potential, and then giving it a shot of energy direction from the guy who understands it better than anyone.
It's like they took a rocket that was just kind of coasting along and strapped it back onto a launch pad.
Perfect analogy. And I think that's the heart of Reddit's story. Sometimes the best things, the most innovative things, they don't come from some big master plan. They come from happy accidents, from passion, from breaking the rules, from having the guts to step back and let something amazing grow organically.
So if you're out there listening and you've got an idea, even one that sounds as crazy as, I don't know, ordering fast food on a flip phone, remember?
Hmm.
You never know where it might lead. It might just be the next Reddit.